Today I am going to be doing something a little different than I normally do. I normally do not root hydrangeas in water, but I want to do that. I've done it in the past, but it's been a while. But I'm going to take some cuttings of my hydrangeas, and then we're going to put them in water. In anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, we should see root formation, and we'll be able to propagate these hydrangeas that are not putting out flowers as of yet. And this is August. So I'm going to take the ones that don't have the stems that don't have flowers, and prepare them for propagation to make some new plants. Okay, looks like I've got maybe 5 or 6 out here that I can take into cuttings. So I'm going to go from the top, and I'm going to count down 3 sets of nodes, leaf nodes, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to cut below the 3rd set down, and so I've got 1 set of leaves, 2 sets of leaves, and 3 sets of leaves. I'm going to take about maybe 7 or 8 cuttings and then take it out to the greenhouse and start working on them. But I need to get them in water as quickly as possible. It's late in the evening. It's after 7. It's better to take these in the morning, but we had a massive amount of rain last night, so these are well hydrated. As you can see, there's no leaf wilt at all. We probably had 2 or 3 hours of rain this morning, but I would recommend you do this early morning before it gets really hot. And do not take cuttings if you see leaf wilt. It's better to make sure that the leaves are very well hydrated. Okay, I'm going to place this one in water so it doesn't dehydrate. Even though it's not in the middle of the day, I still don't want to have any dehydration. So I'm just going to do the same thing on this one. Count down 3 sets of leaf nodes, 1, 2, 3. And avoid any stems that do have flowers, because they're putting their energy into the flower. 1, 2, 3. And I believe that's 3. And let's see. We're taking one from there. I'm going to take this one right here. I don't know if you can still see me. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And just continue this process until I have the right amount of cuttings. 1, 2, 3. Another thing to remember, and I've mentioned this several times before, on all your cutting equipment, I usually spray this with a spray bottle filled with Listerine or antiseptic mouthwash, just to make sure I'm not transmitting diseases from one plant to the other. And these are fairly healthy. They're under micro irrigation, but even so, they probably haven't been fertilized enough this year, because I'm not getting as many blooms on these. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and propagate these. I should be seeing more flowers. Another bed of hydrangeas I have are doing quite well, and I believe it's because they've been fertilized earlier in the year. Okay, now I'm working on the back side of the hydrangea bed, and I'm going to just take out a few more cuttings. And let's just count these. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And this last cutting, let's see if we've got some over here. I believe the others are producing flowers, so I don't want to disturb those. And I might want to do some in potting soil. So this is probably about 8 or 9 cuttings I have that I'm going to test in water. And I think they'll do okay. I'm going to use a few tricks that I use to help boost the rootings and speed up the process, but it's still going to take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So I'm going to head out to the greenhouse and start working on those. Okay, even though I said we had a heavy rain last night, I still want to make sure that they're not dehydrated. So I'm going to remove the top 3 sets of leaves, put them back in the water, and let them make sure they're not even a chance of dehydration, because it is the middle of summer. And so I'm just going to remove the leaves, all 6 leaves, put each new stem in the water, and just go through and do that with each one. And just pull them off. You don't have to cut them. It's going to matter a whole lot. And just put each stem in the water. I've got to still do a secondary cut so I get the right angle. I'm just going to keep going through there, doing this. In addition to that, I'm going to be removing the soft top where a flower might form at some point. and just maybe cut the leaves by 50 to 75%. So we have 3 so far. And they're quite well watered this morning. Like I said, we had a 2-hour rain, but I would recommend doing this early morning. If you're not able to do it early morning, then when you do cut them, like I said before, make sure the leaves are not wilted. Make sure they're really well hydrated. Okay, and I'm just making sure each one goes into the water. I don't have a chance of having any issues. And one thing I would say that I haven't mentioned is that in the final water we're going to be placing these, I'm going to add a little bit of fertilizer, which has a very high phosphorus content. Nitrogen is great for leaf production, and it will have some nitrogen, but it will have a lot more phosphorus, which is going to help with root growth. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to clean this up and get it ready to put in each individual container, so they'll have a chance to start rooting in 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, the fertilizer I like to use for the to help with the root growth there is made by Schultz, and it is a 10-54-10 fertilizer. I don't know if you can see that, but if you read the phosphorus amount of 54, you'll notice that it says it's essential for a strong root system and overall growth. So nitrogen is great for your leaf production, but the roots, one of the things that's critical for roots is phosphorus. That middle number you see in NPK, or the 3 numbers you'll find on fertilizers. So I'm going to mix this with about, I think it was 1 teaspoon per gallon. I'm going to put that in this pot so I can dip it down in there, and we'll get it started on some fertilizer, so which will help speed up the overall root formation. Okay, so I'm using these, these are not what they appear to be. These are recycled water bottles, and the reason I do that is because I can fill one of these up with tap water and allow 24 hours to pass so that the gas will separate from the water itself. It's a well-known fact that if you have a koi pond, which I've had several, if you wait 24 hours, if you don't put a dechlorinating agent in there, it will naturally separate over a 24-hour period, and the chlorine will leave the water. So same thing with this. I just leave these in here so the chlorine gas can escape, and just give the cuttings a little bit better chance if there's any issues with the chlorine, or if you have heavy waters, you may want to use a whole house water filter or a small sink top water filter that you can get the best possible water for your cuttings. So I'm going to put these in our container, and then I will add the fertilizer. Okay, and since we're going to do 2 gallons, it was half a teaspoon per gallon. So I'm going to do 2 of those. And then add the 2nd gallon. Okay, and this should help the root system get a little bit of a head start. All right, so now we have the fertilizer mixed, and it's ready to go. And so we're going to take some of our cups. Now, I've used these in other videos, but these are basically just smoothie or soft serve ice cream cups, or maybe a slushy cup. But anyways, the great thing about this, I'll show you, is that they seal really well without having to use tape. You can see there's no water coming out. Of course, the top is already cut, so you can put your cutting in there. But anyways, it's a great way to keep the water in there. And since I'm not using these as a soil-based method that I've used before, there's no holes cut, obviously. And we're just going to go ahead and remove this soft top. And we're also going to cut the leaves. We're also going to cut the leaves by about 50%. Since these are small, I'm only taking 50%. Put your cap back on once you get your water in there. I'd say maybe maybe a little bit over half a glass. And you'll just want to check it periodically to make sure it's not, the cutting is still in the water. So you can see there, it's well into the water. The cap is great for holding the leaves in place. And we're just going to do that with our cuttings about halfway. And we're going to remove the top 2 node leaves. Remove the soft part that would eventually become a flower. Put our cap on, make sure we only have 1. Okay. And that was actually touching bottom because it's such a long stem. One thing I actually forgot to do is to allow the maximum amount of surface there. So I'm going to cut it at an angle. You can see that. And so that will allow more water to come up into the cutting. This one's a little bit tighter, but I think I can get it cut there. Okay, and we've got a few more to do. Just like I said, okay, this one evidently I've already taken the leaves as far as I can take them. So 50% cut, remove the soft inner cutting, put the cap on. And so that's great. So it's holding it in place. You can see that it's not touched, kind of free floating in there. And so that might help it. It's not coming in contact with the base, which sometimes you can't help that. And I think we had a total of 8 or 9. So I'm going to continue removing these top leaves. Remove the soft inner area. Cut our primary leaves in half. We've got too many there. We only want 2 leaves. Okay. And we're going to put that one in there. Running out of space here. Okay. Just keep doing the same method, removing your top 2 node leaves. Remove the soft cutting at the top. Make your 50% cut on each of the 2 remaining leaves. Add your fertilized water. Make sure you put your cap securely on there. These cups can be ordered from Amazon, and they're very inexpensive because they're disposable. So ice cream stores, slushy stores, smoothie shops will have these, and they're just basically a disposable cup. But they're great because you can reuse them quite a bit. They're not super strong, but they're not going to fall apart either. I've actually purchased some that were specifically made for gardening, and they were very low quality. These are a little bit better quality than those. So I think that's what's going to work best, is something that will hold the water, somewhat prevent evaporation out the top, because it's not just an open container, and that will help. So I'll finish these up and I'll show you what I'm doing next, where I'm going to place them before I run out of daylight. Okay, we've got these ready to go, and I'm going to make sure that I put them in a container that won't allow them to tip over. So if an animal comes out at night, squirrel, raccoon, whatever, during the day, they won't cause them to fall over, because they will pop off if they hit really hard. So these hold about 6. There we go. And I'm going to get one more of these, and then I'll have to get a smaller one, obviously. But anyways, this is the way I do it. And I'll put it in a north side of the building where it receives more shade but plenty of light, but not direct sunlight. So you want to make sure that these are in full shade, because even though it's sitting in water, direct sunlight will heat the water up and it will absolutely kill the cutting. So in 2 to 4 weeks, you might see some callus forming and some small roots coming out. And it could take slightly longer, but we're a long way from our first freeze, so we've got plenty of time to allow the roots to form. And I'll follow up this with a separate video explaining what to do with them once we have a good root system in place. But here in Zone 7, we're quite a ways away. This is mid-August, so we've got September, October, November. We've got 3 months to allow these to produce some roots, get them into a gallon-sized pot, and prepare them for the winter. So these are ready to go. Okay, one last thing I forgot to mention is that on all my cuttings, even though this one is not using the wicking motion that the potted ones do, I still like to put it on an old lunchroom tray. These were purchased off eBay maybe over 10, 15 years ago, but they've lasted quite a while, and they stand up to extreme heat and cold. So you can use it as a humidity tray. If you buy a humidity tray specifically, you're going to pay a lot more for each one from a garden specialty store. So these are great. The water stands in it, and it just allows a little bit of extra humidity around the plants. Even though they're standing in water, I know that sounds crazy, but it just helps with overall humidity, and that will help the plants get established and a root system to start. One other thing I always do with these trays is I use the mosquito bits, because standing water will almost always attract mosquitoes and they'll lay their eggs. So I'm just going to put some of these in the pot, take it out to the area, and this will be ready in about 2 to 4 weeks. Well, unfortunately, we did not get a lot done today. I wanted to do about 20 or 30 more, but since the days are starting to get shorter, I've got a lot more things to do in the garden. So I'm just going to put these on the spot here, and they'll be nice and safe here in the propagation area. I just want to say thanks so much for watching. If you like the video, please like it and leave any comment you have or any questions you have. I've got a lot more to do before winter, before our first freeze gets here. And so before that happens, I've got a lot of things left to do, and hopefully I'll be able to video 90% of it. So I don't know if you love Japanese gardens as much as I do, but I love the bamboo fountain, and I'm thinking about making a video of how I constructed it, which means I'll have to deconstruct the current one and dig it up, but I've got to make some small modifications to it. But anyways, if you enjoy Japanese gardens and you enjoy Zen gardens specifically, this is a nice relaxing fountain. So while I'm finishing up the greenhouse, I'll leave this here for just a minute with just the sound of the water.